Since we started our YouTube channel back in January of this year, we've received lots of new subscribers, and we've also had lots of questions as well.
Yes, thank you for all your comments and questions.
Now, some questions we didn't answer in the comments, so we'd like to take the opportunity today to do a bit of a Q&A session with the questions that we'd like to answer.
Yeah, and kind of maybe getting to know you a bit better as well.
Yeah.
So stay tuned.
We've got our tea, we've got our biscuits.
Yay. So our first question, which really is maybe 2 or 3 questions in one, we've had a lot of people asking us various versions of this question, which is why did we leave the UK in the first place?
That's right.
And what has prompted us to now move back? And I know we did do a video about our 5 main reasons for moving to the UK. That was our very first video that we posted. Obviously, that was our 5, main reasons, and actually, there is more depth in that conversation, isn't there?
Yeah.
Which we were planning on doing once we get back to the UK, once like the dust settles and we have a bit more time. We are planning to do a video, aren't we, with a bit more of a deep dive into the reasons.
Yeah, I mean, it's an overview at the minute, but we will the crux of it, the main reason would be we were both unhappy in the UK at the time, and for various reasons, somebody has US dual national citizenship.
We'll get to that later. Yeah,
and we decided to try somewhere else.
So for the answer, as Paul was saying, really the answer, the sort of baseline answer for both those questions is we just weren't happy. We weren't happy in the UK. We, at the time, had been married nearly 2 years.
Yeah.
Well, we had been married for 2 years when we did move, but we'd been married. We'd been together for over a year before we got married.
Yeah, it was 2 years, wasn't it?
Yeah, we took our time on that one.
Yeah.
And
a lot of thought.
We kind of had talked about one day moving to the US, which was an easier decision for me for reasons we'll talk about in the next question. But it kind of took a while for you to come around to that because Paul has a large extended family. I mean, we both have large extended families. You're closer to yours because of the way you were brought up.
Yeah, geographically and the way it was brought up as well.
Yeah, so and that'll become clear. I'll talk about me in a bit later. So really, we had we had a couple of little holidays over here in the US that kind of helped you.
Yes, and I could see what you enjoyed about being here, and we did plan a lot. As we explained in the other video, we planned a longer build up to moving over here,
right? And but then circumstances happen, like we said in a previous video that we had come over to do a reconnoiter, and then the Icelandic volcano hit, so we had to stay longer, which made us think to save up more money. But then we got back to England and we were miserable within 20 minutes of landing, really.
Yes. So there were things here that we at that time that were available to us that weren't available to us in the UK.
And the longer part is why were we unhappy? That's going to be part of another video because obviously there's more depth.
or therapy session.
Why we're moving back to the UK is kind of a similar thing. Yeah. We have, again, a longer reasoning as to how we got to become unhappy. But I think a lot of people started to question a lot of things during COVID and post-COVID anyway. We're not alone in that, definitely. And that spurred us to talk about things and then to not talk about things and then eventually to sort of have an argument to force us to talk about things.
That's right. And I think it's not a matter of things being, well, we'll explain this further down, but it was more what suited us at that time, what things we missed. And the fact that we were approaching a point in our lives where time is more of the essence.
Yeah.
And you appreciate time more, and we'd like to spend that time doing things that we want to do rather than saving money that's not going to achieve anything at the end of the day.
And it's very
Don't want to be
hard.
the richest guy in the graveyard.
Well, we're nowhere going to be. No way we're going to be that. No, I know it sounds a bit vague, but I mean, we don't want to be frank about it. We lost a lot of our family, like not from COVID, but during that time, we had gone through a lot of grieving, a lot of bereavement, and so that kind of started the thought process. And again, that is a longer conversation for us to have.
Yeah.
So we will get into the depth of both of those things, coming here and leaving here, in more detail. But the underlining current is just we owned up to the fact that we weren't happy in our circumstances, and luckily for us, we had the opportunity to be able to change,
Yeah.
and to make that better.
Which leads us on to our second question, which was, how were we able to? I mean, not physically able to. Obviously, we were both younger and fitter back then, and physically able to do lots of things. But how were we able to come to the US and live and work here?
As in visas and things.
And without going into too much of the backstory, one of us was born here.
Yeah, so this is,
and you can probably tell from her accent.
Yeah, this is again, I apologize if I'm boring anybody, but this is kind of the story of my life, that and our lives since we've been together, is that Paul's answers are very straightforward and easy, and mine are always long-winded and complicated. So I am a dual national. Paul is now a dual national. I was kind of 3 months into being, as a human being, a dual national, because my father worked for the British government. He worked in the Foreign Office, and he got his first posting to Washington, D.C. whenever I was in my mother.
About to be born.
Yeah, so my mum was pregnant with me. And so it just happened that then I was born in the United States.
Yeah.
And per the Constitution, if you're born in the United States, you're an American citizen. And because he worked for the embassy, and because both of my parents are British, which is where it can also get confusing, because they're British because they're from Northern Ireland. It meant that I could also qualify for British citizenship. So I was born being American, and then through my dad's paperwork and shuffling through the embassy, 3 months later, I was also a British citizen. So I've been dual for all my life, practically. And then obviously from a qualification for a green card perspective,
yes,
that made it a lot easier for Paul.
Well, it's probably the easiest route for anyone to become a US citizen is by marrying a US citizen.
But not the reason to marry them.
It's not the reason to marry them.
We're not
looking
recommending
at you,
or telling you to do that.
Looking at you, Gerard Depardieu and Andy McDowell. Yeah, so it's one of the many benefits of being married to my beautiful wife was the fact that I could apply for my green card.
Yes.
Back then, 10, 15 years ago?
Yes.
15 years ago.
15.
The process has always been easier if through the matrimonial route. There are other routes.
Yeah.
We'll look at that in a later
there's
video.
No time restrictions on that. Like if you went and wanted to bring, like if I wanted to make my parents help them come over, at the time, that would have been possibly a 10 to 15 year, or sibling, that again was a 15 to 20 year wait.
Yeah,
it's all dependent, but like the marriage one is pretty straightforward, because obviously you don't want to be living in a separate country from your husband. I say that now, maybe there's circumstances where you might want to be living in it.
Do you? You never know. Anyway,
speak for everybody, but that's what it was. Yes. And the reason why, again, my life was complicated is because, again, as my father worked for the Foreign Office, I grew up moving country every 3 years because of his posting to different places. So that explains why it was easier for me to think of a move to America in the first place, because I had spent all my life moving from one place to another anyway.
Yeah.
Whereas you really lived most of your life in England, didn't you?
Yes, very located in the northwest of England. And of course, what led to becoming a full-blown citizen was the green card has to be renewed every 10 years.
Yes.
And during COVID, my application to renew my green card expired. The process was all drawn out because of COVID, and it worked out easier to go for the full citizenship than it was to get the green card renewed. The process was taking so long.
Yeah.
So it got to the interview stage of the process to become a US citizen, and I passed it. Passed the test, the questions test, and they said to me there and then, "Oh, do you want the ceremony today? Do you want to do it today?" So first thing you knew was getting a phone call.
He just phoned me up, yeah. So I wasn't there when he became a citizen. We hoped he'd pass the test quite easily because he had been teaching all about American civics and history at that point anyway.
Yeah, when I was a student teacher, I had to teach American history as my first thing. And so, if I didn't know that, then I didn't deserve the job.
I would just like to point out the reason we're looking around the room is because our cat is doing various things to new boxes and things.
No.
Yeah, we'll show you him at another time, but he's up to some shenanigans.
He's intrigued by all the packing materials, I think.
Yeah.
If it had been his brother, he'd be eating the bubble wrap now, but thankfully he's not like his brother.
So that brings us to our next question that we've had, and that is for Paul specifically. How did you end up in teaching after starting off in the financial industry?
Well, in the UK, for 23 years, my giddy aunt. 23 years in the UK, I worked in various forms of accountancy. The last being in a hotel. So I always say I worked in the hospitality industry, but never dealt with any guests. And because of that, when Susie secured a job over here, teaching over here in the place where we are, which is Charlotte, North Carolina, it being a banking town, I thought, oh, financial related jobs must be easy to get hold of. But this was 2010, and the hiring over here not kicked back in after the financial crisis of 2008. And that first 6 months was quite a slog, wasn't it?
Yeah, you were getting quite depressed about the situation.
And then I got a job, and I won't say anything about it, it's the worst job I've ever had.
It did involve money.
It did involve money, lots of more money than you could imagine. However, the job was horrible, and
he wasn't
I quit.
stripping. I just want to point that out because that came across as maybe he was a stripper.
No,
he wasn't.
No, I would have made more money from stripping. Even me, I would have made more money from stripping. Probably give me money to put my clothes back on, but there you go. It's another story. Anyway, I quit, and I was back unemployed over here, and you carried on at the school where you were, and it was only a couple of weeks, wasn't it? Because
this was Thanksgiving.
Yeah, quit around Thanksgiving, and it was 2 weeks before that school started its winter break. Christmas, we'd say in the UK. And I'm at home in the flat, and I get a phone call
from my principal.
And he says, "Hey, Paul." I said, "Oh, hello." He said, he named a teacher who was a friend of ours, English teacher. She's just quit. You're English. How do you fancy subbing for the 2 weeks leading up to Christmas? So I said, it beats the heck out of being unemployed. So I was in there like a shot, and it made our commute a lot easier because we were in the one car going in at the same time. And that 2 weeks, they couldn't get the teacher they wanted until the end of January. So after the Christmas break, I went back, and I thought subbing was the future for at least for a while, until I could find another job.
And that was teaching English, and he is English, granted, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're qualified as an English literature teacher. But knowing Paul is very knowledgeable in all sorts of subjects. And so he was really getting into it. I noticed he was getting up at 2:00 in the morning, getting excited about a lesson plan for a Frankenstein, for example. So the spark had kind of been lit there.
Yeah. And then you kind of gave
And then I said to him, he loves history. Since I've met him, and if you're friends of Paul's out there, you will also attest to the man knowing his fair share of anything historical. So I said, well, you love history. Why don't you become a history teacher?
And it just kind of, oh yeah, I never thought of that. And so the process for that started then. And let's see, that's 14, 15. 4.5 years later, after
Yeah,
I got my
yeah.
degree, and
He did have to go back to university,
yeah,
so he went to college here, and got his
going back
degree.
implies that I went there in the first place. I've never been
Well,
to university. I've been
okay,
to
you
sixth
went,
form college, but never been to university.
and he enjoyed the learning experience. He enjoyed
Oh,
going to
it's great.
college,
Yeah, it's
but
great.
you know,
Apart from the
got
math.
to get a job, got to pay the
Yeah,
piper. No, but you do say that you do love teaching. You have loved
yeah,
teaching.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
It's the best job I've ever had. I really enjoyed it, but it's time for a new start.
yes, um, which has led to another question.
Oh yes, sorry. Oh yeah. Sorry, I forgot about that.
Yes,
We talked this script through before and think, oh yeah,
forgotten
I'll get
everything.
that, and of course, waxing lyrical, I forget everything. So we did have a question about what are the main differences between um, high school in the US and in the UK. Now,
Yeah,
obviously, my memories of high school ended in the UK in 1985. So you taught over there before we
yeah,
left. So you
yeah.
had a more recent memory of it.
I don't want to go on, too long because this is actually going to be a topic of a video that we're going to make
Mm,
about a more, to talk about the whole of the education system. But I would say the main difference is, in a brief kind of overview, is high school over here is really seen as their last 4 years of education. So they start around 14, 15, don't they?
mm,
And they leave at 18.
hmm
So that's 4 years. Whereas high school in the UK, we really start and think about starting at age 11. And then you can leave at 16, 15, 16 if you have your GCSEs. And you can then choose to go on to do another 2 years if you want to. So that's very different. In the US, you come out with just a general high school diploma.
Oh, but you try getting a job over here without a high
Yeah,
school diploma.
but then in the UK, you actually get like subject specific qualifications because you
Mm.
get a choice in what you are going to get those qualifications in. So they kind of, you study everything for the first 3 years, from like ages 11 to up to 13, 14. And then you make decisions about what you want to do for your GCSEs, your general qualifications, or the general certificates of education. And then, as I said, you can leave after that if you want to, or stay on and do A levels, which are advanced levels. Whereas over here, in the US, you kind of just have to do you get choices, but you don't get as much choice, really. I don't think you have to do a broader education. I feel over here.
Yes. So
Things have changed in the UK. I think both of us, we had to do a language, for example, up to
yes,
16. I don't think you
yes,
have to do that now in the UK.
but
Just want to be aware of time.
oh,
Just want to
crikey,
point that
yes,
out.
yeah,
Sorry. Like I said, we are going to do a longer video
yeah.
on this, so I didn't want him to start
No,
going too
the
far
other
into
thing
the
that same
details.
person asked was, did we have a daily shooter drill here? Which we certainly
It's
didn't.
not daily, no.
But
It's
usually,
annually.
the start of every
Yeah.
school year we have
And they
a
asked about the national anthem as well, didn't
yeah.
they?
No, you
I
do a
will
pledge
say,
of allegiance every day.
and this depends. I can remember being in school when I was younger in Maryland,
Hmm.
and we did start off with the national anthem. We all lined up
Oh right,
outside, and we did start with the national anthem. Us teaching at schools here, they start off saying the Pledge of Allegiance.
yeah.
They don't do the national anthem.
Which
And I would say that we get training as teachers and staff, don't we, every
yeah,
year?
every year.
But they do what's called a lockdown drill. It's not really a shooter drill. It's called a lockdown
Yeah,
drill, isn't it?
it's kind of like a fire drill, and they only our school only did that once a year. Um, the only other schools that I've taught in over here during a student teaching, they'd have a monthly fire drill.
Yeah, we always have a monthly fire
Yeah,
drill. That's a standard. But I think we had a friend. We
that's a
have a
state
friend who
thing.
came from Florida who said that they had monthly lockdown drills as
Yeah,
well.
yeah,
But we can explain all that later in
yeah,
a longer video.
because we're running out of time here, aren't we?
Yeah. Then we've got a question that says, are Americans like the stereotypes, like loud, self-obsessed, care about money, ignorant of the outside world, and so on? And the short answer to that is some are and some aren't,
Yeah,
really.
I mean, you could say the same thing about people in the UK.
Yeah,
People, you get stereotypical people all around the world.
right.
I think it's just that there's 370 million Americans, so there's a broader section of
the
people that
liberal
would
section.
fall into that kind of demographic. But people are people.
Yeah.
All the world around.
To be honest, I would say
quote Depeche Mode,
we tend to avoid the ones who are stereotypical and stick with the ones who aren't.
Yeah, I mean, in the time we've been here, I'd say
majority aren't.
Majority aren't like
that.
Yeah,
majority aren't like that.
Yeah.
Saying that, we are going to be doing a video soon about American stereotypes of Britons. Like, what have we encountered as a stereotype?
Yeah.
How we dealt with that. So stay tuned for that one.
Yeah.
The last couple, I think we're just going to quickly get through. One person, because we are here in North Carolina, asked us about growth in North Carolina. And we can't really speak to the whole state, can we?
Can't speak to the whole state, but we have seen the city of Charlotte expand vastly in the 15 years that we've lived here.
Definitely.
There is lots and lots of new development, housing development, encroaching further and further out. It's a growing city. I think it's the 12th largest now.
And I would say that we
country.
have rarely actually met anybody who's from Charlotte as a native.
Yeah.
Most people have moved to Charlotte from somewhere else.
Yeah.
We worked with one in our first school, didn't we, Wanda? Remember her?
Oh, yeah.
Her family sort of helped to settle some of the smaller towns here. Yeah. But we actually moved here when they still hadn't finished making the loop road.
The ring road.
The ring road, the 485. And so things have definitely expanded past that, and continue to,
and beyond it in some places.
And now we have a soccer team and a ladies' soccer team as well.
We do,
or football for those of you in the UK.
All right, and last one is yours, isn't it?
Yeah, somebody again asked us for more details about the rental process, and I will just say that we have. I truly believe we got lucky.
Yeah.
I honestly feel, from what we have been seeing on the notice boards, whether it's through Facebook or Reddit or whatever, that people have mostly had trouble securing a rental property to move to from being in the US.
In the US, yeah.
That everybody has mostly had to either have a sibling or a friend or somebody on the UK side do it for them, or wait until they got to the UK and have stayed in Airbnbs initially.
Yeah, for a long stay in an Airbnb.
Yeah, some people have mentioned holiday caravans as well.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that one.
That they used holiday caravans to stay in instead. So I will just say again, I think we just got lucky on that one.
Right. I'm breaking open the emergency tonics, which means we have to draw our Q&A session
to a close.
So if this has prompted any more questions that you'd like to ask us about our
lives, moving backwards and forwards, about the move, about our future, about anything really. I mean, you can ask us anything. I don't say we'll have an answer for it, but you can ask us anything.
Yeah.
You can ask him history questions now that you know he knows everything about history. I won't say you can ask me science questions, but you could try.
Oh, you could try and ask us science questions. Yeah, go on.
But yes, anything you might want to know about us that we may feel comfortable saying to you, but we just wanted to sort of do this as a thank you to everybody who has subscribed and
gets to know us a bit more.
Yeah, now that we're going to be doing this hopefully full time once we get back to the UK, we thought it was about time that we told you a bit more about ourselves. So, keep them coming. I will post a picture of Monty helping us with our packing onto our YouTube channel because he has been helpful.
Oh, he's been very helpful.
Until then, enjoy your tea.
Yes.
We'll enjoy our biscuits.
We certainly will. Take care and bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.